The scorching flames pierced the night sky as Caleb Jensen's heart pounded against his ribs, his horses' hooves thundering across the dusty terrain toward the burning cabin. The year was 1875, and the Wyoming Territory was no place for mercy. Yet something drove him forward even as embers rained down like fallen stars. He'd been tracking a herd of wild mustangs when he spotted the orange glow on the horizon. Now, as he approached the inferno, the heat slapped his face like an open palm. The wooden structure groaned and cracked, surrendering to the relentless fire. "Hello," Caleb shouted, pulling his bandana over his nose. "Anybody in there?" A faint cry answered him, barely audible over the roar of the flames. Without hesitation, Caleb vaulted from his horse, tied the reins to a nearby post, and rushed toward the burning cabin. The front door hung crooked on its hinges, and he kicked it the rest of the way open, ducking low as smoke billowed out. Inside, the air was a thick soup of heat and ash. His eyes stung as he squinted through the smoke, following the sound of coughing to the far corner of the main room. "Over here," a woman's voice called weakly. Through the smoke, he made out a woman crouched on the floor, cradling a young girl against her chest. The mother's face was smudged with soot, her honey-colored hair falling loose around her shoulders. The girl couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, her small body trembling with fear. "I'm getting you out," Caleb shouted over the crackling flames. "Can you walk?" The woman shook her head. "My ankle, I think it's broken." A beam crashed down behind them, sending up a shower of sparks. There was no time to waste. Caleb scooped the child into one arm and carefully lifted the woman with the other. She was lighter than he expected, or perhaps it was the surge of desperate strength that made her weight seem inconsequential. "Hold tight," he instructed, and they both wrapped their arms around his neck as he maneuvered back toward the door. The heat was becoming unbearable, his lungs screaming for clean air. Another support beam groaned overhead. With a final burst of energy, Caleb lunged through the doorway just as the roof began to collapse. The night air, though warm, felt like a blessing on his scorched skin as he carried the mother and daughter to safety. His horse whinnied nervously as they approached, but remained steady. Caleb gently set the pair down on a patch of grass a safe distance from the burning structure. The woman's eyes, bright green despite the soot on her face, locked onto his. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse from the smoke. "You saved our lives." "Anybody would have done the same, madam," Caleb replied, removing his hat and running a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. "I'm Caleb Jensen, Lily Adams," she responded, then looked down at the girl still clinging to her. "And this is my daughter, Sarah." Sarah peered up at him with eyes that mirrored her mother's, wide with lingering fear but now tinged with wonder. "Are you an angel?" she asked in a small voice. Despite everything, Caleb found himself chuckling. "No, little one, just a cowboy who happened to be passing by." He looked back at the cabin, now fully engulfed in flames. "What happened here? Where's your husband?" A shadow passed over Lily's face. "My husband died 2 winters ago, pneumonia. It's just been Sarah and me since then." She glanced back at the burning cabin. "I was cooking supper when the oil lamp fell. It happened so fast." Caleb nodded, understanding all too well how quickly life could change. "Do you have family nearby, somewhere to go?" Lily shook her head, wincing as she tried to move her injured ankle. "We were on our own." Everything we had was in that cabin. The finality of her words hung in the air between them. Caleb studied her face in the firelight. She couldn't have been much older than 25, and despite the circumstances, there was a quiet dignity about her that stirred something in his chest. "The nearest town is Clearwater, about 10 miles west," he said, making a decision. "I've got a room at the boarding house there. You and your daughter can rest there tonight and we'll figure out what to do come morning." "We couldn't impose," Lily began, but Caleb raised his hand. "It's no imposition. I wouldn't be able to sleep anyway, knowing I'd left you two with nowhere to go." After a moment's hesitation, Lily nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Jensen." "Caleb," he corrected her with a gentle smile. "Out here, formalities don't mean much." He helped Lily to her feet, supporting her weight as she tested her injured ankle. She winced, confirming what they both already knew: she wouldn't be walking anywhere tonight. Caleb lifted Sarah onto his horse first, then carefully helped Lily up behind her daughter. "I'll walk alongside," he said, taking the reins. "It's not far." As they made their way toward Clearwater, leaving the burning cabin behind, Caleb couldn't help but steal glances at the woman and child on his horse. Something about their vulnerability, combined with the quiet strength he sensed in Lily, tugged at parts of his heart he'd thought long dormant. The night was clear, stars scattered across the vast Wyoming sky like diamonds on black velvet. Sarah had fallen asleep against her mother, exhaustion finally claiming her. Lily kept one arm protectively around her daughter while the other gripped the saddle horn. "Have you been in these parts long?" Caleb asked, breaking the silence. "3 years," Lily replied. "James, my husband, brought us out here from St. Louis. He had dreams of building a cattle ranch." A sad smile played on her lips. "After he died, I tried to keep the place going, but it's hard work for one person." "That it is," Caleb agreed. "I've been drifting for near 5 years now, working ranches from Texas to Montana, never stayed anywhere long enough to put down roots." "What brought you to Wyoming?" Caleb looked up at the stars. "Heard tell of wild mustangs in these hills." "I've always had a way with horses, thought maybe I'd catch and train a few, sell them in town." "Is that all you're looking for? Horses to sell?" The question hung between them, somehow carrying more weight than its simple words suggested. Caleb considered it for a moment. "Truth is, I don't rightly know what I'm looking for anymore," he admitted. "Just riding wherever the wind takes me." Lily nodded as if she understood perfectly. "The wind has a funny way of blowing people exactly where they need to be, even if they don't know it yet." Their eyes met in the darkness, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits adrift in the vast wilderness of the West. As the lights of Clearwater came into view, Caleb found himself hoping that maybe, just maybe, the wind had blown him exactly where he needed to be. The boarding house was a modest 2-story structure on the edge of town. Despite the late hour, a lamp still burned in the front window. Mrs. Holloway, the stern but kind-hearted widow who ran the establishment, answered Caleb's knock with a frown that quickly transformed into concern when she saw Lily and Sarah. "Good heavens, what happened?" she asked, ushering them inside. Caleb explained the situation while Mrs. Holloway clucked her tongue sympathetically. "You poor dears, of course you can stay here. I've got a vacant room right next to Mr. Jensen's." "I can't pay you right away," Lily said, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Everything we had—" "Nonsense," Mrs. Holloway interrupted. "Payment is the least of our concerns right now. Let's get you cleaned up and that ankle looked at." While Mrs. Holloway tended to Lily's injury, Caleb carried the still sleeping Sarah upstairs to the room they would occupy. He gently laid her on the bed, removing her small boots before pulling the quilt over her. She stirred briefly, her eyes fluttering open. "Mr. Cowboy," she murmured sleepily. "I'm here, little one," Caleb replied softly. "Are you going to stay with us?" The innocent question caught him off guard. "I'll be right next door. You and your mama get some rest now," Sarah nodded, already drifting back to sleep. "Thank you for saving us from the fire." Caleb stood watching her for a moment, a strange, protective feeling rising in his chest. This child and her mother had lost everything tonight, yet here was Sarah, offering simple gratitude without complaint. It was humbling. Downstairs, he found Mrs. Holloway wrapping Lily's ankle with strips of cloth. "It's just a bad sprain," the older woman was saying. "A few days of rest should have you back on your feet." "Thank you," Lily said, then looked up as Caleb entered the room. "Sarah, fast asleep," he assured her. "She's a brave little girl." "She gets that from her father," Lily said with a sad smile. "James was the bravest man I knew." Mrs. Holloway finished securing the bandage. "There, that should help with the swelling. Now I've drawn a bath for you in the washroom. I've left some of my daughter's old clothes as well. They might be a bit large, but they're clean." "You're too kind," Lily said, attempting to stand. Caleb was at her side instantly, offering his arm for support. "Let me help you." With Lily leaning heavily against him, they made their way to the washroom at the back of the house. At the door, she paused and looked up at him. "I don't know how to thank you properly, Caleb. If you hadn't come along when you did." "No need for thanks," he said gently. "Get some rest. We can talk more in the morning." After ensuring Lily was settled, Caleb retreated to his own room. He removed his smoke-stained clothes and washed the soot from his face and hands before collapsing onto his bed. Though exhaustion pulled at his limbs, sleep eluded him as his mind kept returning to the woman and child in the next room. In his 32 years, Caleb had never been one to involve himself in others' troubles. Life as a drifting cowboy suited him no attachments, no responsibilities beyond the current job. Yet something about Lily Adams and her daughter had pierced the careful armor he'd built around himself. Perhaps it was the quiet strength in Lily's eyes or the innocent trust in Sarah's. Or perhaps it was simply time for the wind to change direction. With these thoughts circling in his mind, Caleb finally drifted into a fitful sleep, dreaming of green eyes and burning cabins and the weight of a mother and daughter in his arms. Morning arrived with the scent of coffee and bacon wafting through the boarding house. Caleb dressed quickly and made his way downstairs, where he found Mrs. Holloway in the kitchen. "How are they?" he asked. "Still sleeping, poor things," she replied, flipping bacon in a cast-iron skillet. "That little girl didn't stir once when I looked in on them. Exhausted, I expect." Caleb nodded, accepting the cup of coffee she offered. "I'm going to ride out to what's left of their cabin today, see if anything survived the fire." "That's good of you, Mr. Jensen. I always said you had a kind heart hiding under that rough exterior." Caleb felt his face warm at the unexpected praise. "Just doing what needs doing, madam." After breakfast, he saddled his horse and rode back the way they had come the previous night. In the daylight, the landscape revealed itself in shades of gold and brown, the rolling hills dotted with scrub brush and the occasional cluster of pine trees. It was beautiful country, harsh but honest. When he reached the site of the cabin, he found only charred remains. The fire had consumed everything, leaving nothing but a blackened foundation and the skeletal frames of furniture. Caleb dismounted and picked his way carefully through the rubble, searching for anything that might have survived. Near what must have been the back of the cabin, he discovered a small metal box, its lid warped from the heat but still intact. Inside were a few personal items: a wedding ring, some letters tied with faded ribbon, and a daguerreotype of a handsome young man with Lily's solemn daughter perched on his knee. James Adams, Caleb presumed. He continued searching and managed to salvage a few more items. A cast-iron skillet buried under the remains of the stove, a small china doll with only minor scorching, and surprisingly, a quilt that had been stored in a cedar chest, protected enough that only the edges were singed. As Caleb gathered these precious few remnants of Lily and Sarah's life, he noticed tracks in the soft earth around what remained of the barn. Horse tracks, too numerous and deliberate to be from wild mustangs. The pattern suggested several riders had circled the property recently, perhaps even before the fire. A cold feeling settled in his stomach. Accidents happened. Certainly oil lamps fell, sparks from fireplaces caught, but the presence of multiple riders near an isolated cabin belonging to a widow and her young daughter raised questions. Caleb carefully packed the salvaged items in his saddlebags and mounted his horse. Before heading back to town, he took a slow circuit around the property, reading the signs left in the earth. The tracks led north, toward the hills where rumors placed a camp of outlaws who'd been raiding isolated homesteads. By midday, Caleb returned to the boarding house, his mind heavy with suspicion. He found Lily sitting on the front porch, her injured ankle propped on a stool. She looked different in daylight, her honey-colored hair neatly braided, her face scrubbed clean of soot, revealing a dusting of freckles across her nose and cheeks. She wore a simple blue dress that hung somewhat loose on her slender frame, likely one of Mrs. Holloway's daughter's garments. Her face brightened when she saw him. "Caleb, Mrs. Holloway said you'd gone back to the cabin." He dismounted and tied his horse to the hitching post, found a few things that survived the fire. He removed the items from his saddlebags and brought them to her. Lily's eyes widened as she recognized each piece. When he handed her the metal box, her hands trembled. I thought this was lost, she whispered, opening it to reveal the contents. Tears welled in her eyes as she touched the wedding ring and the daguerreotype. James. I'm sorry there wasn't more, Caleb said quietly. She shook her head. No, this means everything, thank you. She looked up at him, wiping away a tear. Sarah will be overjoyed to have her doll back. She's inside helping Mrs. Holloway bake bread. Caleb sat down in the chair beside her. Lily, I need to ask you something. Before the fire, did you notice anything unusual? Strangers passing by, perhaps? A shadow crossed her face. Why do you ask? I found tracks around your property. Several horses, several men, they came from the north. Lily's hands tightened around the metal box. 3 men rode up the day before yesterday, said they were looking for work, but something about them didn't feel right. They asked too many questions: if I lived alone, if I had any valuables, if anyone checked on me regularly. What did you tell them? I said my husband was due back any day with supplies from town. It was a lie, of course, but they seemed to believe it. They rode off after that. Caleb nodded, his suspicions confirmed. Did you recognize any of them? No, but one had a distinctive scar across his cheek, like a knife wound. Carson Dolly, Caleb muttered. He rides with the Blackwell gang. They've been terrorizing homesteaders from here to the Dakota Territory. Fear flickered in Lily's eyes. You think they started the fire? It's possible. When did the lamp fall? Shortly after I put Sarah to bed. I was tidying up the kitchen and heard a noise outside. When I went to look, the lamp caught my sleeve. She trailed off, a new realization dawning. I thought it was just an animal, but maybe someone was outside creating a distraction, Caleb finished for her. They sat in silence for a moment, processing the implications. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. What do we do now? Everything we had was in that cabin. For now, you and Sarah stay here where it's safe, Mrs. Holloway mentioned the town is looking for a new school teacher. With your education, you might— How did you know I was educated? Lily interrupted, surprised. Caleb smiled. The way you speak. The books I saw in the ruins of your cabin. You're clearly a woman of learning. A slight blush colored her cheeks. I taught school in St. Louis before marrying James. I've been teaching Sarah at home, but I hadn't considered returning to it as a profession. It would give you a fresh start here in Clearwater, Caleb suggested. The position comes with housing a small cottage behind the schoolhouse. Hope flickered in Lily's eyes. And what about you? Will you be moving on soon, back to your Mustangs? The question hung between them, weighted with something neither was ready to name. Caleb found himself reluctant to give the answer that would have come easily just days before. I reckon those Mustangs aren't going anywhere, he said finally, and I'm thinking Clearwater might need someone to look into these outlaws causing trouble. Lily's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. I think Clearwater would be lucky to have someone like you looking out for it. The sound of the front door opening interrupted their conversation. Sarah bounded onto the porch, her face lighting up when she saw Caleb. Mr. Cowboy, Mrs. Holloway let me help make bread, she exclaimed, showing off flour-dusted hands. Is that so? Caleb grinned. Well, I brought something for you. He held out the china doll. Sarah's eyes grew round. Molly, she cried, taking the doll and hugging it to her chest. Mama, look, Molly didn't burn up. I see that, sweetheart, Lily said, sharing a grateful look with Caleb. Mr. Jensen rescued her just like he rescued us. Sarah threw her arms around Caleb's neck. Thank you, Mr. Cowboy. Caleb, unused to such open affection, awkwardly patted her back. You're welcome, little one. Over Sarah's shoulder, his eyes met Lily's, and he felt something shift inside him as if pieces long adrift were finally finding their place. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Lily applied for the teaching position and, impressed by her education and gentle manner, the town council hired her immediately. The small cottage behind the schoolhouse needed repairs, but it would be a new start for her and Sarah. Caleb, meanwhile, spoke with Sheriff Tucker about the Blackwell gang. The sheriff was a good man but aging, and he welcomed Caleb's offer to help track the outlaws who'd been plaguing the area. Could use a deputy with your skills, Tucker admitted after hearing Caleb's background. Pays not much, but it comes with quarters above the office if you're interested in something more permanent than drifting. The offer caught Caleb by surprise. Permanent had never been a word in his vocabulary. Yet as he considered it, images of Lily and Sarah kept appearing in his mind. He found himself wanting to be nearby to ensure their safety, to see Sarah grow and to watch Lily rebuild her life. "I'll think on it," he told the sheriff, though in his heart he'd already made his decision. On the fourth evening after the fire, Caleb escorted Lily to the schoolhouse to show her the cottage that would soon be theirs. Sarah skipped ahead of them, exploring the schoolyard with the boundless energy of childhood. "It needs work," Lily observed as they approached the small dwelling. "But it has good bones." "I can help with the repairs," Caleb offered. "The roof needs patching and that front step is loose." Lily turned to him, a question in her eyes. "I thought you might be moving on soon." Caleb rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly feeling like a schoolboy rather than a seasoned cowboy. "Actually, Sheriff Tucker offered me a position as deputy." "And did you accept?" "I'm considering it." Lily stepped closer, her green eyes searching his face. "Any particular reason you're considering staying in Clearwater? It doesn't seem like the kind of place that would hold a drifter's interest for long." "Maybe this drifter's tired of drifting," Caleb said softly. "Maybe he's found something worth staying for." The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken feelings. Caleb was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the delicate scent of lavender that clung to Lily's borrowed dress, of the way the setting sun caught in her honey-colored hair. "Mama, come look." Sarah called from inside the cottage, breaking the moment. "There's a real fireplace." Lily's cheeks flushed as she stepped back. "We should go see," she said, her voice slightly breathless. The cottage was simple but sturdy, one main room with a stone fireplace, a small bedroom, and a lean-to kitchen at the back. As they inspected each room, Caleb made mental notes of the repairs needed. Sarah chattered excitedly about where her bed would go and how she would help decorate. "It's perfect," Lily declared finally. "A fresh start." Walking back to the boarding house in the gathering dusk, with Sarah running ahead to catch fireflies, Caleb found the courage to ask the question that had been on his mind. "Those men who came to your cabin. If they return, or if others like them come around, would you want me to teach you how to use a firearm? For protection?" Lily considered this. "James tried to teach me once, but I was always too afraid of the recoil. Still, for Sarah's sake, I should learn. We could start with something small, easy to handle." Lily repeated, a smile playing at her lips. "You really are planning to stay, aren't you, if that's all right with you and Sarah?" Lily stopped walking and turned to face him fully. "Caleb Jensen, in the span of a few days, you've saved our lives, helped us find a new home, and offered protection without asking anything in return. I think I speak for both Sarah and myself when I say your presence in Clearwater would be more than all right." Something in her voice, in the way she looked at him, made Caleb's heart beat faster. He was a man who'd faced down stampeding cattle and angry gunslingers without flinching, yet this slender schoolteacher left him tongue-tied. "Well, that's good then," he managed. Lily laughed softly, the sound like music in the twilight. "For a man of action, you sometimes struggle with words, Mr. Jensen." "Only around you, Mrs. Adams," he admitted. Their eyes held for a long moment before Sarah's excited call pulled them back to the present. The little girl came running toward them, hands cupped together. "Look what I caught," she exclaimed, opening her hands slightly to reveal the glowing insect inside. As they bent together to admire Sarah's firefly, Caleb felt a sense of rightness wash over him. Perhaps this was what he'd been searching for all along, not just a place to belong, but people to belong with. The following week was a flurry of activity. Caleb accepted the deputy position and moved his few possessions into the quarters above the sheriff's office. When not on duty, he devoted his time to repairing the cottage behind the schoolhouse, often with Sarah as his eager assistant. "Hand me that hammer, little one," he'd say, and Sarah would solemnly pass him the tool, watching intently as he fixed loose boards or patched the roof. Lily divided her time between preparing lessons for the upcoming school term and sewing new clothes for herself and Sarah from fabric donated by the townswomen. Her natural grace and quiet intelligence had quickly endeared her to the people of Clearwater, who rallied around the widow and her daughter with typical frontier generosity. One evening, as Caleb finished replacing the rickety front steps of the cottage, Lily brought him a glass of lemonade. "You're working too hard," she chided gently. "You have your deputy duties as well." Caleb took the glass gratefully. "I want to make sure everything's sound before you and Sarah move in. Winter will be here before we know it. At this rate, we'll be settled long before the first snow." Lily sat beside him on the new steps. "I can never repay you for all you've done, Caleb. Seeing you and Sarah safe and happy is payment enough." She studied his face in the golden light of sunset. "You're a rare man, Caleb Jensen. Most would have ridden on after delivering us to town, their good deed done." "I'm not most men," he said simply. "No," Lily agreed softly. "You're certainly not." Inside the cottage, Sarah was arranging her few possessions: the rescued china doll, a small wooden horse Caleb had carved for her, and a picture book Mrs. Holloway had given her. Her childish humming drifted through the open window, creating a backdrop to their conversation. "Sheriff Tucker mentioned you asked about tracking the Blackwell gang," Lily said, changing the subject. Caleb nodded. "They've moved north, according to our latest information, but they have a pattern of circling back to areas they've hit before. You think they might return to Clearwater?" "It's possible. That's why I want to teach you to handle a firearm like we discussed." Lily took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about that. You're right, I should learn, for Sarah's protection, if nothing else. We can start tomorrow if you'd like. I have a small revolver that would suit your hand." "Tomorrow, then," she agreed. As dusk deepened around them, neither seemed eager to move. The ease of their companionship was something new to Caleb, a comfortable silence with no pressure to fill it. Finally, when Sarah called from inside that she was hungry, they rose. "Will you join us for supper?" Lily asked. "Mrs. Holloway sent along a stew, and there's plenty." "I'd like that," Caleb replied, unable to resist the invitation. They ate by lamplight at the small table Caleb had repaired, Sarah chattering about the wild rabbits she'd seen in the schoolyard and how she hoped to make friends when classes began. After the meal, Caleb read to her from the picture book while Lily washed the dishes. It felt strangely domestic, as if they were a family rather than three people thrown together by circumstance. When Sarah's eyes began to droop, Lily tucked her into the makeshift bed they'd set up in the cottage single bedroom. The main room would eventually serve as Lily's bedroom once proper furniture was acquired, but for now, mother and daughter shared the small space. "She's growing fond of you," Lily observed when she returned to find Caleb stoking the fire. "She asks about you constantly when you're not around." "She's easy to grow fond of in return," Caleb said. "She reminds me of my sister at that age, fearless and full of questions." "You have a sister? You've never mentioned family before." Caleb's expression grew distant. "Had she died of fever when she was 12? My parents followed a few years later, father in a farming accident, mother from what the doctor called a broken heart, though I suspect it was consumption." "I'm sorry," Lily said, touching his arm lightly. "Is that when you began drifting?" He nodded. "Nothing left to hold me in Tennessee after that. Worked my way west, ranch by ranch, never staying longer than a season." "Until now," Lily said, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "Until now," he agreed. The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibilities. Caleb found his gaze drawn to her lips, wondering how they would feel against his own. As if reading his thoughts, Lily's cheeks flushed and she stepped back slightly. "It's getting late," she said, "and you promised me shooting lessons tomorrow." Caleb cleared his throat. "That I did. I'll come by mid-morning if that suits." "It suits perfectly." He gathered his hat from the peg by the door. "Good night, Lily." "Good night, Caleb, and thank you for everything." As he walked back to his quarters above the sheriff's office, Caleb looked up at the star-filled sky and realized, with a certainty that should have been frightening but wasn't, that he was falling in love with Lily Adams. The shooting lessons began the next morning in a cleared area behind the schoolhouse. Caleb brought a small revolver, perfect for Lily's slender hands, and patiently showed her how to load it, aim, and fire. Her first attempt sent the bullets wide of the bottles he'd set up as targets, but she was determined to learn. By their third session, she could hit the target more often than not, her confidence growing with each success. "You're a natural," Caleb praised as she knocked a bottle from the fence post on her fifth shot. Lily lowered the revolver, a pleased smile lighting her face. "I never thought I'd say this, but there's something satisfying about it." "Power," Caleb said, understanding. "After feeling helpless, there's power in knowing you can protect what's yours." "Yes, exactly." Lily carefully emptied the remaining bullets into her palm, "though I pray I never have to use this against another person." "As do I," Caleb said solemnly. But the world doesn't always grant our prayers. Throughout August, as summer's heat gave way to the first hints of autumn, Caleb divided his time between his deputy duties and helping Lily and Sarah settle into their new life. The cottage was fully repaired now, furnished with donated items and a few pieces Caleb had crafted himself, including a bed frame for Sarah carved with small flowers along the headboard. The schoolhouse opened in early September, and Lily quickly proved herself a gifted teacher. The children of Clearwater, ranging from Sarah's age to teenagers preparing for adult life, responded well to her gentle but firm approach. Caleb sometimes walked past during lessons and paused to watch through the window as she brought history or literature to life for her rapt pupils. On one such occasion, Sheriff Tucker caught him lingering outside the schoolhouse. "Thinking of furthering your education, deputy?" the older man asked with a knowing smile. Caleb felt his ears redden. "Just making sure everything's in order, MMHMM," Tucker hummed skeptically. "And it has nothing to do with the pretty schoolteacher inside." Sheriff Tucker raised a hand, cutting off Caleb's protest. "Save it, son. The whole town can see how it is between you two. Only question is when you're going to do something about it." The sheriff's words stayed with Caleb as he went about his duties. He couldn't deny his feelings for Lily had deepened over the weeks. Every smile she gave him, every brush of her hand against his when they worked side by side, every quiet conversation on the cottage porch after Sarah was asleep, all of it had woven itself into the fabric of his heart. But was it too soon? Her husband had been gone barely 2 years. And what if she saw him only as a friend, a protector? The thought of ruining what they had by revealing feelings she didn't share kept him cautious. His opportunity to discover the truth came unexpectedly. A letter arrived for Lily from her late husband's brother in St. Louis, offering her and Sarah a home with his family. The town buzzed with the news, and Caleb felt a cold dread settle in his stomach at the thought of Lily leaving Clearwater, leaving him. He found her on the cottage porch that evening, staring at the letter in her hands. "You've heard then," she said as he approached. Caleb nodded, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Will you go?" Lily sighed. "It would be the sensible thing. Sarah would have cousins to play with, a proper home with family." "Is that what you want?" Caleb asked, his heart in his throat. She looked up at him, her green eyes searching his face. What I want has changed since coming to Clearwater." She stood, moving closer to him. "James's brother is a good man, but St. Louis isn't home anymore. This is." Relief washed over Caleb, but he needed to be sure. "Because of the teaching position. Because of you," Lily said simply. "You rode into a burning cabin and carried us out in your arms, but that wasn't the end of your rescue, Caleb. You've been saving us every day since, giving us purpose, safety, belonging." She took a deep breath. "Giving me a reason to stay." Caleb stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Lily, I've been wanting to tell you, I've never felt for anyone what I feel for you. I know it might be too soon, and if you need more time." His words were cut off as Lily rose on tiptoe and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened as Caleb wrapped his arms around her waist, drawing her closer. When they finally parted, both breathless, Lily's eyes were shining. "Does that answer your question?" she asked, a smile playing at her lips. "It does," Caleb murmured, touching his forehead to hers, "though I wouldn't mind hearing it again." Lily laughed, the sound washing over him like summer rain. "I love you, Caleb Jensen. I think I've been falling in love with you since you carried Sarah and me from that fire." "I love you too," he said, the words coming easily now. And I want to build a life with you and Sarah if you'll have me." "We'll have you," came a small voice from the doorway. They turned to find Sarah watching them, her china doll clutched to her chest and a wide smile on her face. "Were you eavesdropping, young lady?" Lily asked, though her tone held no reproach. Sarah nodded unabashedly. "Mrs. Holloway says you and Mr. Cowboy are sweet on each other. Are you going to get married?" Caleb and Lily exchanged glances, startled by the direct question but unable to suppress their smiles. "Would you like that, Sarah?" Caleb asked. Kneeling to the child's level, Sarah considered this seriously. "Would you live with us and read me stories every night and teach me to ride horses like you promised? All of that and more," Caleb assured her. "Then yes," Sarah declared decisively. "You should marry Mama," Lily laughed, ruffling her daughter's hair. "It's not quite that simple, sweetheart." "Why not?" Sarah demanded with a child's logic. "You love each other, that's what matters." Out of the mouths of babes, Caleb thought. He looked up at Lily, still holding Sarah's hand. "She makes a compelling argument." "She does," Lily agreed softly. Later that night, after Sarah was asleep and they sat together on the porch swing Caleb had hung the previous week, he took Lily's hand in his. "I meant what I said earlier," he told her. "I want to build a life with you. I know it hasn't been long, and if you need more time, time is precious," Lily interrupted gently. "James taught me that. We never know how much we have." She squeezed his hand. "I don't want to waste a moment of what we could have together." Caleb raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "Then marry me, Lily Adams. Be my wife, let me be a father to Sarah, and we'll make a family together." "Yes," she whispered, tears of joy shining in her eyes. "Yes, I'll marry you." Their kiss sealed the promise, and as they held each other under the vast Wyoming sky, Caleb marveled at how a moment of crisis riding toward a burning cabin had led him to the greatest happiness he'd ever known. Word of their engagement spread quickly through Clearwater. The town embraced the news wholeheartedly, seeing in their union a kind of poetic justice, the heroic cowboy and the widow he'd rescued, finding love amid the ashes of tragedy. Preparations for the wedding began immediately. It would be a simple ceremony in the town church, followed by a celebration in the schoolyard. The women of Clearwater helped Lily sew a new dress of pale blue silk, while Caleb, at Sheriff Tucker's insistence, ordered a proper suit from the general store. "Can't have you getting married in trail dust and leather," the sheriff had declared. 2 weeks before the wedding, however, trouble arrived in Clearwater. A rider from a northern ranch brought news that the Blackwell gang had been spotted in the area, moving south. Sheriff Tucker called an emergency meeting at the town hall. "We've got to prepare," he told the assembled townspeople. "These men are dangerous, they've burned homesteads and worse." "We should form a patrol," suggested the blacksmith, a burly man named Cooper. "Take shifts watching the town borders." Others nodded in agreement, and soon a schedule was organized. Caleb would coordinate the patrols, using his tracking skills to monitor the outlaws' movements. That night, as he walked Lily home from the meeting, he could sense her worry. "You think it's them, don't you?" she asked quietly, so Sarah, skipping ahead, wouldn't hear. "The same men who came to our cabin before the fire." Caleb nodded grimly. "The description matches. Carson Dawley with his scarred face, riding with Blackwell and his men. What if they recognize me? What if they come after us again?" He stopped, turning to face her fully. "I won't let anything happen to you or Sarah. This time you're not alone in an isolated cabin. You have me, the sheriff, and the whole town standing with you." Lily's expression softened. "I know, it's just... we were so close to our happy ending." "And we still are," Caleb assured her, drawing her into his arms. "This is just a storm that will pass. Our wedding will happen as planned, and nothing, not Blackwell, not anyone, will prevent it." He meant every word, but as they continued toward the cottage, Caleb couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. The Blackwell gang was notorious for its brutality. If they had indeed targeted Lily's cabin deliberately, would they be satisfied knowing she had survived? Or would they see unfinished business? The next few days were tense. Patrols circled the town, and Caleb spent long hours in the saddle, scanning the surrounding hills for signs of the outlaws. Sheriff Tucker sent telegrams to neighboring settlements, warning them and requesting information. Lily continued teaching, refusing to let fear disrupt the children's education, but Caleb noticed she now kept the small revolver in her desk drawer. Each night, he personally escorted her and Sarah home, checking the cottage thoroughly before leaving them. 4 days after the news arrived, Caleb was returning from a patrol when he spotted fresh tracks 5 horses, heading toward town along the creek bed where they would be less visible. His heart raced as he recognized the pattern of one horse's distinctive shoe, the same tracks he'd seen around Lily's burned cabin. He spurred his horse to a gallop, taking a shortcut across the hills to reach Clearwater before the riders. The school day was just ending as he arrived, children spilling from the building with books and slates in hand. Lily stood at the door, bidding them goodbye. Caleb dismounted quickly and strode toward her. "Where's Sarah?" he asked without preamble. Lily's smile faded at his urgent tone. "Inside, gathering her things. What's wrong?" "They're coming, Blackwell and his men. I saw their tracks heading this way." He glanced around at the dispersing children. "Get Sarah and come with me to the sheriff's office. It's the safest place in town." Lily paled but remained composed. "Let me get her." While she went inside, Caleb scanned the surrounding area. The schoolhouse stood at the edge of town, relatively isolated, too isolated for his comfort at that moment. He was about to follow Lily inside when he spotted dust rising on the road from the creek. "Lily." He called urgently. "They're here." She emerged with Sarah clutching her hand. "What do we do? We'll never reach town before they see us." Caleb made a split-second decision. "The root cellar behind the cottage. It's deep and the entrance is hidden by those berry bushes." "Go now, stay quiet, and don't come out until I come for you." Lily nodded, lifting Sarah into her arms despite the girl's confusion. "Be careful," she whispered, pressing a quick kiss to Caleb's cheek before running toward the cottage. Caleb watched until they disappeared around the back, then positioned himself at the front of the schoolhouse, his hand resting on his revolver. He wouldn't confront 5 armed men directly. That would be suicide, but he needed to delay them, to keep their attention away from the cottage until help could arrive. The riders approached slowly, clearly wary. In the lead was a tall man with a black hat pulled low over his eyes. Blackwell himself, Caleb presumed. Beside him rode a younger man with a jagged scar running from eye to jaw. Carson Dolly, just as Lily had described. The other 3 were nondescript hard cases, the kind who filled out every outlaw gang. "Afternoon, gentlemen," Caleb called as they drew near. "Something I can help you with?" Blackwell reined in his horse, studying Caleb with cold eyes. "Maybe. We're looking for a woman and her little girl." "Heard they might be in these parts." "Lot of women and girls in Clearwater," Caleb replied evenly. "Any particular ones you're interested in?" "Widow by the name of Adams," Dolly cut in, his hand hovering near his holster. "Had a cabin north of here till recently." Caleb kept his expression neutral despite the confirmation of his suspicions. "The schoolteacher. What business do you have with her?" "Personal," Blackwell said shortly. "Where is she?" "In town, I expect. School's out for the day." Dolly nudged his horse forward. "You're lying." "Saw you talking to her just now." "Then you need better eyeglasses," Caleb retorted. "That was Miss Wilson, the seamstress. She was delivering fabric for the school pageant." The tension in the air thickened as the outlaws exchanged glances, clearly skeptical. Caleb knew he couldn't maintain the deception for long, but every minute he delayed them was another minute for Lily and Sarah to remain safely hidden, and another minute for someone in town to notice the suspicious riders and alert Sheriff Tucker. "You know," Blackwell said conversationally, "it occurs to me that you look mighty protective of this schoolhouse for a man who's got no business here. You wouldn't happen to be the cowboy who pulled that woman from the fire, would you?" Caleb's silence was answer enough. "Thought so," Blackwell continued. "See, we had a deal with a rancher up north, fellow named Carlton, wanted that widow's land bad enough to pay us to scare her off. When the fire didn't do the job, he was disappointed. So he sent you to finish it," Caleb said, disgust evident in his voice. Blackwell shrugged. "Business is business. Now, why don't you tell us where the Adams woman is and we can conclude our transaction without unnecessary unpleasantness?" "Not going to happen," Caleb stated firmly, his hand tightening on his revolver. The outlaw leader sighed. That's a shame. Carson here was hoping for a peaceful resolution, weren't you, Carson? Dolly's scarred face twisted in a malevolent grin. Oh, absolutely, peaceful as a graveyard. In one fluid motion, Dolly drew his pistol. Caleb was faster, firing before the outlaw's weapon cleared leather. The bullet struck Dolly's shoulder, spinning him in the saddle with a howl of pain. Chaos erupted as the other outlaws drew their weapons. Caleb dove for cover behind the schoolhouse water trough as bullets splintered the wood around him. He returned fire carefully, making each shot count, aware that he was outnumbered and outgunned. A bullet grazed his arm, tearing through his sleeve and leaving a burning trail across his skin. He gritted his teeth against the pain, squeezing off another shot that found its mark in one outlaw's chest, dropping him from his horse. Blackwell. A new voice shouted from the direction of town. "This is Sheriff Tucker, throw down your weapons." Caleb risked a glance and saw Tucker and several townsmen approaching, rifles ready. A rush of relief washed over him, tempered immediately by a new fear as he saw Blackwell wheel his horse toward the cottage. "The woman," the outlaw leader shouted to his remaining men. "Find her." Without hesitation, Caleb broke from cover and ran toward the cottage, ignoring the bullets that kicked up dust at his heels. He reached the corner of the building just as Blackwell dismounted and began searching around the structure. "It's over, Blackwell," Caleb called, aiming his revolver at the outlaw. "Your men are down or surrounded. Surrender now." Blackwell turned slowly, his own pistol held casually at his side. "Impressive shooting back there, Cowboy, but you're forgetting something." A cold smile spread across his face. "I still don't have what I came for. And you never will," Caleb stated firmly. "Lily and her daughter are under my protection now, and the protection of this town." "Noble sentiments," Blackwell sneered, "but Carlton wants that land and I aim to deliver it." One way or another. In a lightning-fast move, the outlaw raised his pistol. Caleb fired simultaneously, his bullet striking Blackwell's gun hand. The outlaw's shot went wild as his weapon fell to the ground, and he clutched his bleeding hand with a string of curses. Sheriff Tucker and the townsmen arrived moments later, surrounding Blackwell and his remaining men. As they were being disarmed and bound, Caleb hurried to the root cellar. "Lily, Sarah, it's safe now," he called, pulling aside the brush that concealed the entrance. The cellar door opened slowly, and Sarah's small face appeared, her eyes wide with fear. Behind her, Lily held the small revolver Caleb had given her, her knuckles white around the grip. "Are they gone?" she asked, her voice steady despite the terror evident in her eyes. "They're captured," Caleb assured her, reaching down to help them out. Sheriff Tucker and half the town came to the rescue. As they emerged into the daylight, Sarah flung herself into Caleb's arms. He winced as her small body pressed against his injured arm but held her tight nonetheless. "You're hurt," Lily gasped, noticing the blood soaking his sleeve. "Just a graze," he dismissed. "Nothing serious." Lily holstered her revolver in the pocket of her skirt and took his face in her hands. "You could have been killed," she whispered, her eyes searching his. "But I wasn't," he said gently, "and now it's truly over." Blackwell confessed that a rancher named Carlton paid them to frighten you off your land. With that testimony, they'll all face justice. Lily's expression hardened. "Carlton, he approached James about selling the cabin land last year. James refused because it contained the creek that watered our crops." She shook her head in disbelief. "To think he would go this far." "Some men value land over lives," Caleb said grimly, "but he won't harm anyone else where he's going." As they walked toward town, Sarah clinging to Caleb's uninjured arm and Lily close by his side, he felt a profound sense of completion. The danger had passed, and their future together stretched before them, bright with promise. The wedding took place as planned 2 weeks later. The church was filled with townspeople who had come to see the union of the brave deputy, and the schoolteacher he had rescued from the flames. Sarah, resplendent in a new dress with ribbons in her hair, served as her mother's attendant, beaming with pride as she watched Caleb and Lily exchange their vows. "I, Caleb Jensen, take you, Lily Adams, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his voice steady as he gazed into her eyes. I promise to protect and cherish you and Sarah, to build a home filled with love and laughter, and to stand by your side through whatever challenges life may bring." Lily's voice trembled slightly as she responded, "I, Lily Adams, take you, Caleb Jensen, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love and support you, to create a family with you, and to treasure each day we are blessed to share." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Caleb pulled Lily into a tender kiss as the congregation erupted in cheers. Sarah bounced excitedly beside them, and when they separated, Caleb lifted the little girl into his arms, including her in their embrace. They were a family now, bound by love that had been forged in fire and tested by danger. The celebration afterward lasted well into the evening, with music and dancing in the schoolyard. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the festive scene, Sheriff Tucker approached the newlyweds. "Got something for you," he said, handing Caleb an envelope. "Deed to a parcel of land just outside town, 20 acres with a nice stream running through it." Caleb looked at the sheriff in surprise. "How did you, town council voted on it?" Tucker explained with a smile. "Consider it a wedding gift and a thank you for your service to Clearwater. Figure a family needs more space than that room above my office or the cottage behind the schoolhouse." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she read the deed. "This is too generous." "Nonsense," Tucker scoffed. "Besides, the blacksmith's already organizing a barn raising and the ladies have plans for a proper house. Can't stop them now, you know how determined these townsfolk can be." As the sheriff walked away, Caleb pulled Lily close. "What do you think, Mrs. Jensen? Ready to build a new home?" "As long as we're together," she replied. "Anywhere is home." Sarah tugged at Caleb's hand. "Can I have a pony at our new house?" Caleb laughed, ruffling her hair. "I think that can be arranged, little one." Later that night, after the celebration had ended and Sarah was asleep in her bed at the cottage, Caleb and Lily stood on the porch, gazing at the stars. "Did you ever imagine, when you rode toward that burning cabin, that this is where you'd end up?" Lily asked, her head resting against his shoulder. Caleb thought back to that night, how the sight of the flames had drawn him like a beacon across the dark prairie. "No," he admitted. "I was just doing what needed doing. I never expected to find my heart's desire in the midst of disaster." "Life has strange ways of bringing people together," Lily mused. "If not for the fire, our paths might never have crossed." "I'd like to think we would have found each other somehow," Caleb said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Some things are meant to be." Lily turned in his arms, rising on tiptoe to kiss him properly. "I believe you're right, Caleb Jensen. Some things are indeed meant to be." As winter gave way to spring, the new Jensen home took shape on the gifted land. True to Sheriff Tucker's word, the entire town pitched in, men raising the barn and framing the house, women sewing curtains and quilts. By the time the wildflowers bloomed across the prairie, the family was settled in their new dwelling. Caleb continued his duties as deputy while starting a small horse breeding operation on their land. His skill with the animals was renowned, and soon buyers came from as far as Denver to purchase his carefully trained mounts. Lily taught at the schoolhouse during the day and in the evenings worked alongside Caleb, building their dream together. Sarah thrived under their care, growing stronger and more confident with each passing day. The pony Caleb had promised became a reality, a gentle, dappled mare named Daisy that Sarah learned to ride with her stepfather's patient instruction. The sound of her laughter as she galloped across their land became the soundtrack of their happiness. 1 year to the day after the fire that had brought them together, Lily and Caleb sat on the porch of their home, watching Sarah chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. "I have something to tell you," Lily said, taking Caleb's hand and placing it gently on her stomach. "We're going to have a baby." Joy like nothing he'd ever known spread through Caleb's chest as he gathered his wife into his arms. "A baby," he repeated in wonder. "Our baby." "Sarah's already planning to be the best big sister in Wyoming Territory," Lily said with a laugh. "She has quite a list of names picked out." "Does she now?" Caleb grinned. "And what does she favor?" "Oddly enough, she set on Blaze if it's a boy says it's because you rode through fire to find us." Caleb's throat tightened with emotion. That's fitting in its way. As the stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky, Sarah ran up to join them on the porch, settling herself between them with the easy confidence of a child who knows she is deeply loved. "Tell me again how Papa found us," she requested, leaning against Caleb's side. "Over the months, mister." Cowboy had gradually given way to Papa, each utterance of the word a gift Caleb treasured. "Well," he began, his arm around her small shoulders, "I was tracking wild horses when I saw a glow on the horizon." It was a story they never tired of telling or hearing, the tale of a cowboy who rode into a burning cabin and carried a mother and daughter to safety in his strong arms. A tale of courage and chance, of new beginnings rising from the ashes of tragedy. A tale that had become the foundation of their family. And as Caleb looked at his wife and stepdaughter, with another child growing beneath Lily's heart, he knew that riding toward that fire had been more than an act of bravery. It had been the first step on the journey to discovering what home truly meant. 6 months later, Lily gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They didn't name him Blaze, after all, but James Caleb Jensen, honoring both the father Sarah had lost and the one she had found. The day they brought him home from the doctor's house in town, Sarah climbed onto Caleb's lap as he sat beside Lily and the baby. "Are you happy, Papa?" she asked, studying his face with a child's direct curiosity. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Caleb replied truthfully, looking from Sarah to Lily to the tiny bundle in his wife's arms. "You three are everything to me." "And you're everything to us," Lily said softly, her eyes filled with love as she reached for his hand. "Our hero who rode through fire to find us." Outside their window, the Wyoming sky stretched endlessly above the land they had made their own. Inside, the warmth of family surrounded them, a different kind of fire, one that would never consume but only nurture and sustain. And Caleb Jensen, once a drifting cowboy with no place to call home, finally understood that the greatest adventure of all was not found on the open trail but here, with the woman and children he loved, building a life from the embers of chance and courage that had brought them together. In that moment, surrounded by his family, he silently thanked whatever fate or providence had guided him toward that burning cabin on a dark night that now seemed a lifetime ago. For in saving them, he had found salvation himself and a love that would burn bright and true for all their days to come.